Well, hello, one and all. I am Matt Williamson, and the Combine is in the books. We have a new all-time fastest player in Combine history in Xavier, University of Texas wide receiver. And in his honor, as well as in Mike Evans' honor, who signed today, he's going to, I don't say he's going to retire as a Buck, but he signed a big deal for 2 years. We're starting to see some of these. Well, he's the first. But I think we'll see a fair amount of these free agents re-sign with their own team. A lot of those talks are going on now, especially this week with the Combine in the books. But let's get back to Worthy and just want to talk Combine wide receivers because more and more, I think the Steelers have to draft one. I mean, this group is so good and so deep and so athletic and so many shapes and sizes. When the draft gives you lemons, make lemonade out of it. When don't try squashing square pegs in round holes. I think you try to get one of these receivers, even if it's a 4th, 5th rounder, you'll be pretty happy with what's there. Real quick on Worthy, I'm taking nothing away from him, and I watched it live, and I thought it was unbelievably cool. But he was only 165 pounds. I mean, he's really lean and looks like a sprinter much more than a wide receiver. It's an amazing accomplishment. I was so happy for how happy he was. You know, he ran a 4.25 in his first run, and 99% of the planet would have shut it down and been like, that's the best here. No one's going to touch it. He runs again, and unofficially it was 4.22, which tied John Ross, so that's amazing. And he goes crazy. And then later it's changed to 4.21 officially, and sets the record. So again, massive accomplishment. Now, I just said Steelers, wide receiver. I think Worthy will probably go in the first round now. I am not considering him at 20, though. I don't know if I consider any receivers at 20. We'll talk more about 20 in these coming weeks, of course. However, how about this number? Of the 30 fastest wide receivers in Combine history, Dre Archer was one, Darius Hayward-Bay was one, a lot of names you don't know. So of the 30 fastest ever, only one of them ever went on to have a 1,000-yard season in the NFL. Only one. Like, there's a lot of names on there you never heard of. There's a lot of them that, frankly, weren't that good of football players when they got to Indy. So that's a little bit different with Worthy because he was, at a worst, a day 2 guy if he never even goes to Indy. I mean, he's a good prospect. He's a good player. He has good tape. But I do think there's a conversation to be had of these guys get overdrafted, which I think is undeniable. The unbelievably fast top 2% type guys, top 30 ever. And you wonder if you're that fast. I used this example on another podcast. Like, are you a dragster, a drag strip racing car, or one of those insane vehicles that sets land speed records on the salt flats or whatever? If that's the type of athlete you are, well, that's not a good receiver. I mean, receivers to me are NASCARs. They can bump and grind and change directions. And, I don't want a dragster out there on a track that's not flat. You're just running straight lines. Just wonder if maybe, I'm not saying by any stretch it's a red flag that your guy runs too fast, but I would be a little wary. I think that's, history showing us that. So, really interesting. Congrats to him, but proceed a little bit with caution. Folks, BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your basketball wagering, including pro and college hoops throughout the year. With up-to-the-minute odds, stats, trends, you can follow your favorite teams path to the playoffs with in-game live betting, contests, and all the best player props. Experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices. Head to BetOnline today and to become part of the team. And remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. So what I did now for the second half of the show is I just went to NFL.com, the Combine Tracker, sorted wide receivers 40 times, just because I just want to talk about some of these top dudes, because it is such an impressive group. Brian Thomas was second at 4.33, and trust me, 40 times are not the most important thing. Some of these guys that didn't run phenomenal, I think, might become slight values that we could talk about. And I might be more concerned about three cones and things like that. It's just the way I sorted it so I don't miss any names I wanted to talk about. But Brian Thomas from LSU to me, well, actually, the top three guys were both Texas receivers, Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. He ran a 4.34. Brian Thomas ran a 4.33. Mitchell and Worthy, I worry a little bit, especially Worthy, are better testers than they are prospects players. I don't have that concern at all with Thomas. I think Thomas is a touchdown machine. I see physicality there. I think the top three receivers in whatever order are dead set, but Thomas is the fourth one and might be closer to number 3 than whoever people have at 5. It would take a lot for me to take Thomas at 20, but I absolutely think he's worth it. If something strange like a Deontay Johnson trade occurred, then sign me up for it. I mean, and frankly, I'm not even sure Thomas will be there when it's all said and done. But I think he's a phenomenal prospect. Adonai Mitchell, to me, is probably the better prospect than his counterpart, Worthy. I just think he's more well-rounded. He's bigger. He's thicker. I thought his tape was better. He also could end up in the first round. There were two receivers that I thought gained some momentum back. Is South Carolina's Xavier Leggett. He ran a 4.39. And Devontae Walker from North Carolina, who ran a 4.36. Both those guys were underwhelming / disappointing in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. And this gives them some good momentum. I think they're both sort of straight line-ish, especially Walker. He's the outside the numbers long, type dude. But he had a lot of drops in Mobile, and I just think he had a bad week. I mean, I'm willing just to kind of brush that off, bad week for Walker, but I think he's gotten some momentum back. Maybe, I think he's probably a top 50 player. Leggett's more of a 2-3 turn type of guy. Two other receivers that have some similarities are Roman Wilson and Ladd McConkey from Michigan and Georgia, respectively. They both were 4.39. Wilson, to me, is a little more take the top off than McConkey, but they both can fly, obviously. McConkey is a to A+ route runner. Neither are huge. I think Wilson will go later than McConkey, but the Steelers and Wilson in the second round could absolutely be a match. McConkey could certainly find his way into the first round. I don't think that's crazy at all. It's funny, guys like Troy Franklin runs a 4.41, and he's considered a top 50 player anyways, and no one like bats an eye. I mean, that's how good this group is. Ricky Pearsall is a name you need to know out of Florida. Phenomenal. Changes direction stuff, catches the ball very clean, was very good in the gauntlet drill, ran a 4.41. I used to think that, man, I bet the Steelers could get him in the third round and be real happy with it. I'm not sure he lasts there now, but there's so many of these guys. If you go third round receiver, you're going to be pretty happy. I mean, just wanted to throw out Bub Means because he's a Pitt guy, really intriguing. He's a day 3 player, but he had a good combine. Rome Odunze is one of the obvious top 3 receivers in this class. People think, wow, he had a rough go of it. Only ran a 4.45. Only ran a 4.45. I mean, you kidding me? I mean, he is a big physical guy that plays at like 220 pounds running a 4.45. But more importantly, everything else he did was phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. Change of direction stuff, all that. Rome Odunze is a star in the making to me. I'm really intrigued with Malik Washington. He ran a 4.47 from Virginia. He's shorter, but he's not tiny. Really good change of direction. Has a lot of toughness to him. I'm thinking like 4th round on him if I'm in the Steelers neighborhood. Brendan Rice is Jerry's son. Big physical receiver. Ran a 4.5 flat. I think that's kind of how he plays. I don't think he's a burner. But he's a good nuanced, fight you for the football type guy. Good route runner, as you'd imagine. Johnny Wilson's really interesting too. I mean, he is a monstrous wide receiver from Florida State. Ran a 4.52. My comps on him are like a Darren Waller. He doesn't change directions great, but I didn't think he's going to run a 4.52 at his size. I mean, he is a monster. Dunze's Patriot of Washington, they have 3. They're going to get drafted pretty high, but Jalen Polk ran a 4.52, which I'm sure will hurt him a little bit considering how steep this class is and how much, how steep competition is. But he would definitely be a day 2 consideration for me for the Steelers. He fits in what they do really well. And then the last one I want to talk about is Keon Coleman. People are, he was a first rounder and then he went to the combine and blew it because he ran a 4.61. I don't see it that way. I mean, he's a king size contested ball guy that we knew didn't have elite deep speed, but all his other stuff were very controlled and very impressive. For example, his gauntlet drill, which is that drill where they run straight down one of the side, right down one of the yard lines, across the field, and they catch ball after ball after ball, put it back on the turf. He was very, very controlled, much like Puka Nacua last year, by the way, and reached a really high top speed doing that. That's more footballish, and I thought he shined in that regard. I don't think Keon Coleman has any chance to be in the second round for the Steelers. He's probably still a top 45 player, but who knows? I mean, just because of all these names I just mentioned, let alone Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to go really high, of course, but so is Rome. Somebody that I just said is, he's no chance he's going to be there in the 50s for the Steelers, or boy, I doubt you can get him in the third round. I'm going to be wrong about, because these receivers are awesome. And when a draft class gives you awesome stuff, you take it and you add it to your football team. So, all right, take care. Over and out.